In this episode of Supply Chain Now Radio, Chris Barnes, President and Executive Director of APICS Atlanta, discusses the evolving landscape of professional development and adult education in the supply chain, including the new APICS workshops with Georgia Tech's Supply Chain and Logistics Institute.
We're now going to be featuring Mr. Chris Barnes on Supply Chain Now Radio. Chris is President and Executive Director of APICS Atlanta, one of our sponsors, and an occasional co-host on the show. We're glad to have him today. Whenever he's not saving the world one warehouse at a time, he's right here in Atlanta with us. So this week he's back from his global travels. Chris, where you been?
Just primarily on the East Coast this year.
Okay.
So been keeping it local.
Okay, keeping it local.
Yeah, trying to again save the East Coast one warehouse at a time. But I appreciate Matt and John being here. It's nice to see their perspectives. You know, you can get myopic in what you're doing all day, but it's nice to see their perspective from a shipping perspective and also from a spend analysis perspective. So
and leadership perspective.
And the leadership, yeah. I mean, it's neat to hear that they're basically preaching to the APICS altar in terms of professional development, talent development, the things that we're trying to do for companies.
So speaking of APICS and speaking of some big news, what's new with APICS Atlanta?
Well, I just before I get into what's new, it relates back to specifically what Lee had just asked about a few moments ago. Massive open online courses are a significant disruption in the training space, not only for APICS. We've seen fewer people attending workshops and seminars in exchange for low cost or possibly free certifications from companies or organizations like MIT. I've heard you can go out and get a 2-year supply chain management certification from them, all free. Of course, it takes a lot of discipline. And what I'm seeing is even companies individuals that want to get self-study as an option for their certifications. I'm weekly talking to people that they've purchased the books. They've started down that path. They just don't have the discipline to do it. So they're looking more to get back into a classroom environment. So that is the big thing that we're seeing. Obviously, the APICS Atlanta has seen a drop-off in attendance as well. So what we've done is partnered with, and this is a big thing, I think, nationally for all APICS chapters as well as APICS National. We've partnered with Georgia Tech, their Supply Chain and Logistics Institute, to offer APICS classes as a core part of their management series programs.
And that's specifically, we're talking about the CSCP, which is your Certified Supply Chain Professional, widely regarded APICS certification. And then the new one, which is Certified Logistics Transportation Distribution, which has been really well received in the 2 years or so it's been released, right?
Yeah, they're both really well received. They're more at a high level. Supply chain CSCP is more of a 10,000 foot view of the supply chain. It's kind of from inbound to outbound. What is the supply chain doing? What is it? How can you manage it? CLTD is more on the outbound side. It's transportation, logistics, distribution. And the historical favorite for APICS members has been CPIM, and that's more focused on operations management, inbound, materials management, production planning focus. But we're offering all three, primarily through Georgia Tech, starting July 23rd. That week is a 2.5-day course of CLTD, followed by CSCP. So if you're really, really interested and really out to kind of be bored for a week, that's a good way to go out and spend it at the Georgia Tech conference.
Quite the salesman there.
Quite a salesman. Really sold it.
That is hardcore studying. Hardcore studying.
So our partnering with Georgia Tech is nothing new. So APICS Atlanta has been around for almost 60 years. We've got roughly 650, 700 members. But in the last 3 or 4 years, Georgia Tech's Supply Chain Logistics Institute's Managing Director, Tim Brown, joined our Executive Advisory Board. We started sponsoring Supply Chain Day, which is a very practical job fair type approach where they're bringing on 15 to 20 leading employers to the Institute to interact with hundreds of students. That's been a great experience sponsoring that. This what you're describing and announcing, that's really an extension of a current partnership, right?
Sure. Yeah. Tim Brown has really stepped up. He's doing some great things, not only in Atlanta, around the Southeast, even in Panama. I know they do classes in Panama. So obviously Georgia Tech has an international exposure. We're expecting to get people to want to fly in and take the classes. The good thing is, as I think Scott mentioned earlier, it's part of the management series. If you look at their website, Georgia Tech website, you can, under Supply Chain and Logistics Institute /education, you can take an APICS class as part of their 4-part series. So you can take up to 4 classes that they offer. And you can get another certificate that kind of says, hey, I'm baptized and certified by Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Which I think, you can take the test as well for APICS. So each course has a test. You become certified. It's almost like a CPA or supply chain professionals. But what I'm expecting is people might take the class, forego the exam, which is another cost, and just get the Georgia Tech certificate. So I think that's going to be big.
Yep. 2.5-day boot camp style, which the pilot workshops are, right? And they kick off.
Yeah.
The weekend.
Kickoff is the 23rd. So the first class, CLTD, is 2.5 days. Right now, the market value is $2,400 as an investment. That's per class. So CLTD is $2,400. CSCP is $2,400. You can take them both. You can take one individually. As I mentioned, I don't know. We'll have a lot of people taking both. That's a pretty intense 5 days of learning. But it's really designed to be more of an accelerated learning. Historically, we offer the classes more. It's basically 40 hours of studying, face-to-face time. We typically offer that maybe like 5 consecutive Fridays or 5 consecutive Saturdays, 8 hours a day. So you can see 2.5 hours of studying. Packing 40 hours into that time is going to be tough, but it's just really how we present the materials and how the learners are going to be able to adapt.
Now, who should take this?
Well, it's kind of back to what Matt and John were talking about. I think, from John's perspective, he talked about getting educated students practical experience. How do you do that? That's partly what we're doing. We're able to get people that have the education side, maybe give them the additional practical experience of what is more specific supply chain things. What I like to see is having these classes, we have different people from different backgrounds. So it can be supply chain analyst. It can be, we have a class starting tomorrow in Lawrenceville. Basically, they're warehouse professionals, people supervising and managing warehouses. So it's anywhere from the doers, the day-to-day people doing the work, to the managers and all the way up to the planning side.
So it's important for the business owners that are in these industries to share this information with their employees to let them know that this is a chance for advancement and extra, more learning that can help them in their career.
Yeah. And some of it's, as Matt had talked about, maybe you get people that start their careers right out of high school. They don't maybe necessarily understand what a supply chain is overall. They know what they're doing day in and day out. They don't understand how transportation impacts warehousing, how production impacts getting product into the warehouse. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we could take those people, give them this supply chain training, and then they become hopefully a broader based understanding.
We'll bring
students from Livingston will know.
There you go. Yes, I was about to say that. You beat me to it, Matt. That's perfect for Supply Chain 101.
We also, the Georgia Tech thing is huge. It's just a big announcement for us. However, let's not forget our roots. We offer classes with individual companies around Atlanta, around the Southeast. For example, we're starting a class. It's going to be 5 Fridays with a company up in Lawrenceville. It's basically 8 hours for a Friday. They've also offered to allow other individuals to come into the class. Now, probably by now it's too late to sign up for the class. But what I enjoy about that is they have 4 people from their company they're hosting. We have about 4 other students coming in just from other companies around. And what that really does do well, but when they start hearing input from the other 4 people from 4 different companies, I think it's going to be a better learning experience overall.
Completely agree.
You can also take self-study if you want. You can buy the books online. I would encourage you to buy them from APICS Atlanta. It's a win-win. And you can also go online and look up things like APICS CLTD Coach. They have a blog. Mr. CSCP is another website with a blog. And APICS Exam Warehouse is another resource.
Love it. And one final note, I don't think we mentioned it, but these courses, while they're a locally driven partnership between APICS Atlanta and Georgia Tech Supply Chain Logistics Institute, they're all based on the very proven and respective APICS body of knowledge, which is the group of standards and protocols and best practices. So great news there. Chris, appreciate all your leadership with the chapter. This has been some heavy lifting to get it across the finish line, but I think for our consumers, our members, the companies that plug in APICS, huge opportunity, and I think we'll be able to serve them better.
Thank you.
Now, can they go on the website to get information about this?
Yeah, you can either go to apixatlanta.org and look at the different classes we have offered, or you can go straight to the Georgia Tech website, which I used to have, Lee, but I don't have it anymore.
Best bet is to shoot us an email at info@apixatlanta.org, and we will take a white glove approach to making sure we answer questions. So great work. Appreciate your leadership, Chris, and thanks for being here today. a brief departure from your global travels.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up on a couple of opportunities. Again, want to thank John, Matt, and Chris for being here today. Our first opportunity. So coming off the heels of a successful Georgia Logistics Summit and MODEX, we took a joint industry association of Georgia approach where we bandied together 7 different industry associations to serve as a host sponsor. Well, part of the aim there from a bigger picture standpoint is to continue to cultivate relationships across these associations that really serve different segments of the end-to-end supply chain. So we've got a networking hour at Keegan's in Smyrna. Ever been there, Chris?
Never.
Keegan's. On May 31st from 5:30 to 7:30. So any of the participating members or any associations that do serve supply chain, maybe we just hadn't reached yet, you're more welcome to join us there for that networking hour or two. Next month on Supply Chain Now Radio, we're going to be featuring Tammy Graysick with Lund International, which was just named the Large Manufacturer of the Year for Gwinnett County, a very successful automotive manufacturer, and Bo Groover with the Effective Syndicate, one of our Executive Advisory Board members. Webinars on tap. Speaking of online training, if we do anything at Supply Chain Now Radio beyond this live monthly podcast, we offer a growing variety of webinars. We've got upcoming sessions with focused on subject matter such as tackling the Amazon effect, business intelligence and data analytics, omni-channel fulfillment, business metrics, reverse logistics, and much, much more. So find out more information at apicsatlanta.org. And special note, and Chris, I might get this date wrong, but we created the APICS Atlanta Hall of Fame a couple of years ago, and it really was stood up to recognize volunteer leaders that have spent decades or made significant contributions to our storied chapter. And we are very proud to recognize Mr. Mike Roman, who's going to be inducted to the APICS Atlanta Hall of Fame, and is going to have a bust up in Canton, Ohio, right?
Wow.
Yellow jacket, the whole 9 yards. But
yeah, he's a longtime contributor, not only to APICS nationally, the body of knowledge, but the APICS Atlanta chapter. I think the event's going to be the third Tuesday in fourth Tuesday in June. I think that's the 27th. It's up in Alpharetta at the Newtown Park.
Yep. And Lee, any guesses on how folks can get more information on that?
I'd say apicsatlanta.org.
Or shoot us an email at info@apicsatlanta.org. I want to thank our sponsors, of course, APICS Atlanta. We're here to serve. If we can serve your organization in any way, shape, or form, reach out. And Talent Stream, who always, speaking of talent, who's helping it make it easier for organizations to find talent in the engineering, the manufacturing, and the supply chain space. More information, check out our website, or you can email me direct. Here's a new email address, evp@apicsatlanta.org. Executive Vice President, evp@apicsatlanta.org. And again, great show today. I want to thank John Haber with Spin Management Experts, Matt Bean with Kick Custom Products, and Chris Barnes, our fearless leader at APICS Atlanta. I want to thank Katie and Lee, and that's a wrap.